Topic 7.10 Speciation. So, speciation is the creation of new species, and the biological species concept is when organisms belong to the same species if they can interbreed to produce viable and fertile offsprings. So, these are a few reproductive isolation barriers. So we have prezygotic barriers which block fertilization by impeding species from attempting to mate, and I believe there are 5 examples of this. The first one is habitat isolation, which is when two species encounter each other rarely or not at all because they occupy different habitats. Temporal isolation is when species breed at different times of the day, season, or years, and they cannot mix their gametes because they're unlikely to mate and breed due to their differences. Behavior isolation is courtship rituals and other behaviors unique to a species and are usually effective barriers. Two species might have different courtship behaviors or mate preferences and thus find each other unattractive. Mechanical isolation is when mating is attempted, but bodies or reproductive structures simply just don't fit together, so mating really doesn't occur. Gametic isolation is when two species might produce sperm and egg cells, but they cannot combine in fertilization. So, in general, reproductive isolation barriers prevent gene flow between populations, whether it's prezygotic or postzygotic. And this photo here is just an image of prezygotic barriers that I just went over. And now we have the postzygotic barriers. So a postzygotic barrier prevents the hybrid fertilized egg from developing into a viable, fertile adult. So there are 3 examples of this, which would be reduced hybrid viability, which is when mating results in a zygote but incompletely, and that may stop the development of the zygote. Reduced hybrid fertility is when, even if the hybrids are strong and they survive, they may be sterile. And then hybrid breakdown is when some first generation hybrids are fertile, but when they mate with another species or with another parent species, offsprings of the next generation are weak or sterile. And once again, this is just a photo of the postzygotic barriers that I just went over. And then we have the driving factors of speciation. So first up, we have a allopatric speciation, which is when organisms of an ancestral species evolve into 2 or more descendant species after a period of physical separation caused by a geographic barrier. And when populations become isolated, they may begin evolving independently through mutations, natural selection, or genetic drift. So this photo basically shows how the species were all together, the members were together, and the gene flow was interrupted when the population was divided geographically, and it led to isolated subpopulations. And then we have sympatric speciation, which is when organisms from the same ancestral species become reproductively isolated and diverge without any physical separation. And through this, gene flow is reduced between groups, and it's reduced between groups that are still in contact. And then we have rates of evolution. So there are 2 types. There's gradualism and punctuated equilibrium. So the graduated equilibrium, there are gradual changes in species over the years, and this process follows natural selection, whereas punctuated equilibrium is when there's stasis, which are periods of little to no change, and when there is change, there is rapid change. And then some other terms we have are adaptive radiation, which is evolution of new species that allows empty ecological roles or niches to be filled. And then topic 7.13, which is origins of life on Earth. So primitive Earth was basically it contained inorganic molecules when oxygen wasn't present in the atmosphere. So that means like CO2, nitrogen, methane, and other materials were available. So through, I believe it was Stanley Miller's lab, he had an experiment that showed the abiotic synthesis of organic molecules in a reducing atmosphere and showed how it was possible. The experiment demonstrated that organic molecules could have formed with various possible atmospheres, and overall proved that RNA molecules have been produced spontaneously from simple molecules, and that small organic molecules polymerize when they are concentrated on hot sand, clay, or rock. And basically with his research, he was showing the origins of life on Earth. And I believe that's it.